When you hear the word dyslexia, you likely immediately think of spelling, or reading, or extra time on tests, or generally someone who needs accommodation and help, like a disability. And it is. I do not mean to stand here in front of you today and undermine the difficulties of dyslexia. I do not mean to say that it is something easy or something that I personally found easy to manage, or that it was, like as some have suggested to, some magical gift that gave me accommodations with no downsides. It is not. Dyslexia is frustrating and it is exhausting, and it affects everything from school to communication, memory, organization, confidence, and even the way people perceive you. It affects the way you hold yourself, explain yourself, and walk through the world. You see, the thing is about dyslexia is how it gets reduced too quickly to just a weakness or just a learning disability, and that's not just what it is. It's not just spelling words wrong or having a reading problem, but it's actually a difference in the way your brain develops and processes information. It's actually living in a world that was designed for a neurotypical mind while you have a neurodivergent mind. You see, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia in the 5th grade, I thought the world was over. But at the same time, I now had this label to explain everything that I struggled with. It explained why I was behind, why I couldn't read until I was in 4th grade, and why work felt a little harder than it did for everyone else. How I had to work a little harder to reach the same point than everyone else did. And having this label, it kind of felt like a relief of some sorts. But what I now realize, looking back at it, is it actually became something quite dangerous, in the sense that I started using dyslexia as a crutch. So I stopped using it as an explanation for myself, and rather as an excuse. And I started using it to excuse not trying, per se. That because I had dyslexia, I was automatically at a disadvantage, and there was just nothing that I could do to even the playing field, if per se. So no matter what I could do, I couldn't meet other people, you know? And I started using really dyslexia as a crutch. And that's the thing. Dyslexia is not dangerous in the sense of dyslexia itself, but dyslexia becomes more dangerous when it changes or shapes the way you perceive yourself because of it. You see, I started believing that because I struggled, I was less capable, and that because I needed support, I was weaker. And the thing is, I've always been a very academic and studious individual, and I've always wanted to achieve in school. But the thing is, school measures intelligence in a way that I did not fit in, and it started making me believe that I was the problem. And it's really when you want to be successful in a system that was not designed for the way your brain works, it's defeating, honestly. And but now I would like to say that my perception has actually changed about dyslexia now as I've gotten older, and I think a lot of that has to sort of do with the way I was raised with my dyslexia, and my parents took very polar opposite approaches. You see, my mother saw dyslexia very sympathetically. She saw my struggles, she saw that I needed support, and she treated my dyslexia like it was something real, something that affected me, and she treated it as though it should not be ignored. And that was right. Dyslexia is real. It affects your life. Things are harder for you. And a child needs support when they have dyslexia. Because without, school actually changes from a place where you should feel challenged to a place you feel rather discouraged or ashamed or embarrassed. You see, because everyone else is ahead and you're just trying to catch up. And eventually it's like, what's the point, right? Like, I'm already behind, I'm not catching up. And that's why getting proper diagnostics or proper accommodation matters, and why support matters. But the thing is, there comes a fine line between giving a student adequate support and overdoing it, in a sense. See, if you overdo support with dyslexia, I don't know if that's the right word, A student may start to see dyslexia as something that is only a disability. They will believe that that is all dyslexia is something that limits you, that you are broken, and that the world will have to constantly adjust themselves around you for you to succeed. And that is not true. And that is where my father came in. See, my father, and this still angers me today, believed that I would grow out of my dyslexia. Well, maybe not that I would grow out of my dyslexia, maybe he was trying to say that dyslexia should not define me. But the thing is, this angered me because dyslexia affected me every single day. My world revolved around school, and by denying that or saying that I would grow out of dyslexia, it felt like he was denying me or dismissing me of something that shaped me, denying that I was dyslexic. But now as an older teenager, I realize, or I choose to understand what he meant differently. That the world was not going to accommodate itself to me forever, and I could not use dyslexia as a crutch. Rather, I should focus not of growing out of my dyslexia, but growing into it, learning how my brain works, instead of wishing it worked like everyone else. Getting rid of the idea that dyslexia is just this crutch, and figuring out how to succeed. See, pretending that dyslexia is not real is wrong, but it's rather about understanding your dyslexia enough to work with it. See, my mother taught me that my struggles were real, and my father taught me that my struggles did not have to define me. Dyslexia should not be dismissed, or dyslexia should also not be the reason you stop looking for your own strength. So something that is not talked about often enough with dyslexia is not just an academic thing. It affects everyday life. It affects when your thoughts move faster than your words, when you know exactly what you want to say but don't have the words or the way to explain it, when you try to write sentences and you know exactly what you're writing and you read it back and it's a bunch of gobbledygook, when you know exactly what you want to spell, or you spell because 5 different times and every single time it's wrong, or when someone gives you instructions and everyone else gets it and you're still sitting there thinking, what was the instructions? Like, what is this? It shows up when people think you're disorganized or lazy because you can't meet deadlines, or that the work you've put into something does not show in the final project. It shows up when your memory fails you, or when you're constantly trying to improve that you're intelligent to the world, even though you know you are. See, dyslexia becomes personal. It affects your self-esteem, it affects your confidence, it affects the way you see yourself in social situations, because your brain is not always processing information in the same way as everyone else in the room. And when you're young, you just don't have the words to explain that. You just know that things are harder for you, and that you're trying, and that you are thinking, and that you're not stupid. But when the world keeps measuring your intelligence or measuring you in this way that does not work for your brain or by what you struggle with, eventually you question your intelligence anyways. And that is the real danger. Not struggling, but believing that the struggle means you are less. That is why I believe dyslexia should not be treated like an excuse, but I also do not believe it should be dismissed. Both are equally damaging. If you treat dyslexia like it is imaginary, you leave a child unsupported. But if you treat dyslexia as though it's only a disadvantage, a child may start to see themselves as though they are broken. And the thing is, neither one is right. Dyslexia needs to be understood honestly. Yes, it comes with disadvantages, but it also forces you to adapt. Because when the normal way does not work for you, you have to find another way. You learn to become a problem solver. You learn to think differently. You learn to become resourceful. And you learn to exist in a world that was not built for the way your mind works. You see, that does not erase the struggle, but it does mean that the struggle is not the whole story. And that is where the strengths of dyslexia matter. Dyslexic people are not less intelligent. Our intelligence just doesn't show up in the conventional sort of way. Dyslexic people actually have a multitude of strengths, like strong long-term memory. They are great visual or three-dimensional thinkers. They are good in big picture thinking. They have great pattern recognition. They are some of the most creative, inventive, and able people to see the connections that other people miss. Some of the best inventors, entrepreneurs, and scientists are dyslexic. Namely Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, Leonardo da Vinci, Richard Branson, the CEO of the Virgin Group, if you did not know, Elon Musk, Tommy Hilfiger. Just because your brain does not your brain does not follow the usual path, it finds another way, you know, and that is not weakness, that is a different kind of strength, a different kind of intelligence. And that is why I care so much about how dyslexic people are raised. Do not raise them as though they are broken, but do not raise them as though it is nothing either. Do not raise them to believe that the world will always accommodate them, but do not raise them in a hopeless world where they will believe they will never succeed. Teach them the truth. Teach them that dyslexia is real, that it affects everyday life, that it can be frustrating, exhausting, and difficult, but also teach them that it does not make them less. Teach them their strengths. Teach them that they are just as capable, even if their minds do work differently. There's a whole world out there for dyslexic people, but they have to understand how their brain works in order to find their place in it. Teach them how to ask for help without feeling ashamed. Teach them that it is okay to need help in some areas and excel in others. No one is perfect. So dyslexic children should not be raised to obsess over their weaknesses. They should be raised or taught to recognize their strengths, because dyslexia is not something you grow out of. It is something you can grow into understanding. That is what happened to me. I mean, look at me here today. I'm standing here and giving a TED talk. Even though I stuttered and mixed up my words and kind of was all over the place, it did not stop me from giving the TED talk. Dyslexia did not hold me back, and it shouldn't hold you back either. Thank you.